I'm Rupert Verco, Managing Director and CEO of Cobra Resources PLC. We're a South Australian focused explorer and developer. We have two key assets. One is the Boland heavy rare earth project. We are planning on defining a bottom quartile cost source of dysprosium and terbium. We plan on doing that through a mining process called in-situ recovery. We have fantastic metallurgy. We're getting high recoveries at a pH of 5, which is the equivalent of a black coffee. We have very unique ore there in that it's very permeable, and that enables the in-situ recovery process. And we're currently waiting on permitting to do field studies and expand a scalable resource drill out across our 3,500 square kilometre prospective landholding. We've also added a critical mineral copper project recently to our portfolio, and we're excited to execute a exploration program to unlock the value and the potential on that asset also.
Rupert, good to see you, sir. Right, we'll get into Boland project in a second, but first, this Nanahill copper project that you just picked up, what can you tell us about it? It's a sort of skarn porphyry system. So have you got much info, much data on that?
Yeah, Matt, we really have. So look, the first thing I'll say, it's a related party transaction. We have executed an option deed. The reason why we have is we know that one of our directors, David Clark, has worked very hard to re-establish land access on this project, which is what he has successfully done. And it's a phenomenal asset. The last hole that was drilled at Blue Rose, one of the key porphyry skarn targets, was 48 metres at 2.2% copper and 0.78 grams gold from 8 metres. Really economic, really shallow. We've done a lot of work reinterpreting geophysical data, and based on repetitions and a synclinal fold that hosts the skarn, we think we can extend the already existing 1.6 kilometres of mineralisation by over 5 times. So this is a big win for Cobra shareholders.
Right, but in terms of the work that's previously been done and your analysis of it, there's a kind of sort of demagnetized bullseye anomaly. I mean, how sure are you that represents a sort of porphyry intrusion that may be kind of feeding this skarn mineralization?
We're relatively confident, Matt. Reason being is there's been a previous drill hole put into that, and various academics confer that the alteration is atypical of a porphyry system. We know it's fertile because of the tenure of the copper and gold grades in the skarn. What we need to do is build up a geochemical framework that we can map and model that intrusive structure. So when we plan and when we're ready to drill some deeper holes to test that big prize, we've got great confidence in where we're placing those holes.
Okay.
But we can have some really early wins in this option period by chasing economic skarn mineralisation.
Right, and in terms of kind of the chargeable anomaly, I mean, what exactly do you see, and other kind of porphyry analogues that you're looking to?
The best porphyry mine in Australia is Cadia. At Cadia, mineralisation was discovered in a skarn some 40 years ago, and it probably took 20 years from the discovery of, or 30 years from the discovery of that skarn to the discovery of the porphyry. Now, that skarn was mined economically through open cuts, and now the porphyry system is a block cave operation, and it's Australia's most profitable mine. And that's what the opportunity is with this project, and that's why we're very excited about it, Matt.
Okay, and again, I'm just trying to really kind of dig into the kind of geological model or understanding at the moment, because there's a kind of folded limestone syncline hinge zone, as I understand it. I mean, what does that mean in terms of potential copper grades? What can you tell us?
So the existing skarn mineralisation, there's about 1.6 kilometres of strike, and it's effectively strata bound within a limestone unit. And what skarn mineralisation is that carbonaceous material effectively gets altered. Now, what we've been able to do with the geophysics is interpret, this is sedimentary sequences, is the Adelaidean geosyncline. It's very structurally deformed, a number of folds and anticlines. And what our gravity data is showing us when we look at it in a very unique way is we have a syncline that intersects that demagnetized porphyry structure, and we have skarn mineralisation most likely in two limbs, not one, and in a deeper fold hinge that will be more conductive to fluid migration because of structure. That's how folds work, and that's generally the sweet spot. If you look at a number of sediment hosted gold projects or copper assets, in that fold hinge is where you get higher grade material. So they're theories we're really keen to execute during the option period.
Okay. And you seem to be kind of honing in on the kind of copper gold blue rose rather than the kind of copper moly over at Netley Hill. Is that right in terms of kind of near-term resource definition?
It is such a prospective bit of ground, you can get lost in the number of targets. Like the last diamond hole drilled at Netley Hill was 350 metres at 0.1% copper and 0.015% moly from surface. Huge upside, big 3 billion tonne chargeability IP anomaly at Netley Hill. So it is very much like a Cobra Panama style target. But porphyry systems are often complex, and we need to do some work to really understand the structure there, and that's very much at the forefront of our mind as well, Matt. So we want to make sure that we're using our capital effectively and delivering the right results, and Blue Rose is the best bet for that at present.
Okay, and sticking with the kind of historic data set type of questions, in terms of historic copper recoveries or any kind of metallurgy done, and understanding any kind of deleterious, elements, arsenic, sulfur, etc. What do you know?
Yep. So there has been some metallurgy work done on both the oxide portion of the skarn, where the recoveries for heap leach style mineralisation are relatively good at around 75%, and the sulfide mineralisation is amenable to standard flotation circuit. There is work that is required to get better recoveries. So look, technology's moved on a lot from 25 years ago, and we're keen to assess that as we work through this option period.
Okay, so are you just looking at sort of shallow, that kind of oxide component, or do you think there's going to be a few kind of future deeper undergrounds of sulfide options available?
Yep, absolutely. So mineralisation starts from anywhere from 4 metres below surface, which is oxide, but we have intersections like 132 metres at 0.5%, which are from 11 metres, which is a majority of primary mineralisation. So there's plenty of depth potential to be had here, Matt.
Right. Okay. And obviously you've got to assess this. You've got to get kind of focused, and you've got to be careful with your capital allocation to this. But things like Manor Hill, for instance, I mean, what could that add to the story?
Well, look, this could be a Havieron style project. Hopefully a little bit shallower, with mineralisation more accessible. And look, we're in the copper state of Australia. We have the right fertile geology here, and there's been a lot of government-backed magnetotelluric work which shows the right crustal big system type structures to host significant deposits. So that's why we're excited, and that's why we're really keen to pursue this project.
But what do you think the opportunity is? When you mention porphyries, people go, "Oh my goodness, here comes a ton of money required to get after these things," because they're big, but you need to spend time, money to do that versus these sort of higher grade skarn zones, which deliver the headlines, high grade headlines. So how do you come after us as kind of smaller company?
Great question, Matt. Firstly, we have recently sold a gold asset for up to $15 million. So we've got some cash. We hold some shares in Barton Gold. So we have some non-dilutive funding there. But really our strategy is let's focus on the skarn. Let's build up that geochemical footprint so we know where we are in the porphyry system. And then let's assess that target with some further IP surveys, bit of geophysics, which is very cost effective. And then let's determine the point in progress where we're hopefully working towards 1 million tonnes of contained copper in resource within the skarn, where the big upside in the porphyry can be tested. And look, we're talking about a depth of 600-700 meters maximum. So it's not kilometers, but it's still that step change for a junior explorer.
Okay, and let's talk about the deal structure, because it's like I said, it's related party, and I've been through that process myself. It's a tricky thing to navigate. So can you run us through the kind of option terms again?
Yep. So 12-month exclusivity to do exploration, and we'll look to do $300,000 Aussie worth of drilling at that Blue Rose skarn. And what we hope to do is demonstrate to our shareholders that this deal is right, to take it to an EGM and seek their blessing. Now, the deal structure is $1 million Australian worth of Cobra script, reimbursement of some sunken costs, and then it's really a back-ended a deal where we make a discovery, we define a resource, we apply for a mining license, we nominate a special purpose vehicle to hold that license, and Cobra owns 74% of that SPV. Springton Trust will hold the other 26%. And then there's a put and call process where, based on independent valuation of that asset, we can settle and acquire 100% of it through equity. So it's a very good structure that it really materialises on success.
Okay, and what about the put call option year 8? I mean, how does that? How do you kind of manage the kind of valuation discussion at the end of that period?
So it's the average of an independent. So two valuations occur, and then there is a trigger process and a sunset date. So after 8 years, that needs to be settled. So it gives Cobra a great line of sight to get 100% ownership, and hopefully provides the vendor significant upside and really encourages us to do work quickly as well.
So they get the kind of 26% of the SPV plus I'm reading 1% royalty as well.
Great.
Credit normal stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, let us know about the exploration program, I guess, once you've worked out what you want to do and how you're targeting it. But the rationale for doing this, because this may seem like a bit of a segue for the investors who invested into the kind of rare earth potential. So you mentioned that there's been some delays in some of the what are you waiting for on the rare earths side of Boland?
Sure, Matt. So look, what we set out to try and complete a scoping study by the end of the year. There were some commercial components that have probably changed the size of the prize with the rare earths. We acquired further land off of TriStar, 3 key tenements that really massively increased our resource opportunity. We have also, we're working through what I want to do, Matt. Rare earths can be challenging, and we're addressing the biggest components of risk through what we're doing and our work program. We're focused on metallurgy. We're showing exceptional recoveries at very benign acidities, black coffee effectively. And what we're doing now is we're assessing how we can maximize our value. So one of those processes is reducing cerium and lanthanum, maximising the dysprosium and terbium in our carbonate. But the other bit that we really need to demonstrate to the market is the ISR, or in-situ recovery process. So the permitting that we're waiting for is going to enable us to do in-field in-situ recovery studies in our installed well field. So the one benefit we have all the baseline environmental and hydrology data achieved, and we're just waiting on the tick of approval from our regulatory government body to get out there and get that work done.
Okay. And I think I was going to sort of ask you some questions around, lights and heavies, and perhaps we can maybe do as like a separate session if you got time to kind of help educate some of the market as to the differences and the use cases and the margins, pricing, etc. But just very quickly today, just remind people what you're focusing on, because you've thrown me a curveball with this copper option that you've taken up, because I think that's a super thing to kind of keep the team busy while you're waiting for stuff on the rare earths. But I'm just trying to, when you do get permission to kind of move ahead, I want to kind of get into what exactly you think is important to focus on in terms of the business, because I think ISR, not too many people understand it outside, I think, of maybe uranium. So can you sort of talk through sort of the technical milestones needed to confirm ISR feasibility at scale for something like this?
The first key thing that we've done is we've recognised and identified a new form of ionic rare earth mineralisation. The second bit that we've demonstrated is the bench scale process. So we've already produced an MREC through an ISR process at ANSTO Laboratories. We've got really high recoveries, very low acid consumption, so the right economic parameters to support low cost production. The next component we need to do is demonstrate it in the field. So we have a well field installed. We've got peripheral monitoring bores. This infrastructure is the infrastructure of a mine. And what we need to do now is, one, demonstrate the mining rate that we can achieve in the field. And then we need to demonstrate we can do it at scale. And the great thing is, Matt, is we basically have sunken all of our costs to support a pilot study. And we have plans and a strategy in place to take this project to a pilot study. But the other thing that's always important, mate, is having a resource that supports a stable and long-term supply. Now, we're currently waiting on the reanalysis of over 800 samples from historic uranium-focused drilling across this expanded tenure. And that's really going to inform in and refine and make drilling for our resource definition more cost efficient. So whilst it's taking some time, it's meaning we're applying a much more considered process to our resource definition.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess we're saying we need to kind of validate the ISR wellfield performance for the pilot test and beyond with that. But I think what's interested me is the kind of high recoveries, like pH of like 4.55%. How does that actually then influence your decision making, or potentially influence your decision making around kind of future flow sheet design, operating costs, etc., if you can maintain those sorts of numbers?
Great question, Matt. And I think we see a huge opportunity with it, because one, when your acid consumption is so low, it means that you have some maneuverability in your cost basis to trial other opportunities. So things that we're doing with ANSTO now are, we are assessing oxidation processes to remove the cerium and lanthanum. They're not worth much. That's the first step in the production process for rare earths, or separation. And if we can be successful in that, what that means is we're producing a much higher value product. We would be, we would have the critical minerals production tax credit available to us in Australia, and we'd have a higher payability on an MREC. So we're really keen to demonstrate that to future off-takers, and we think that that will help us demonstrate our credibility and our competitiveness with the current Chinese producers.
In terms of the kind of the paleo channel that you're working up here, I mean, in terms of like wellfield management, do you? I mean, I can't think of too many comps in Australia, but what do you look to kind of inform? Again, the planning and the layout of that while you're kind of going through this kind of pilot phase?
Very good questions again, and probably some of our recent reanalysis results have probably changed that rhetoric a little bit. So we've hit a zone in the second paleo channel called the Yanini paleo channel, where we're seeing mineralisation over 10 metres in thickness, and the sands look very consistent. Now, sands and the organics, which are what the rare earths are absorbed to, are really important. Now, complexity in channel systems can really impact the recoverability in the ISR process. There's been a lot of speculation around Boss Energy's Honeymoon project recently running into some production challenges, and we really want to know that information. And something that we have probably done a lot more of than a lot of other uranium-focused explorers is we've been drilling sonic core, Matt, because we know that we need to recover and understand the integrity of that geology to best be able to plan and design our wellfield configurations. And that's really enabling us to do that. It costs a bit more, but to understand that information at an early stage, it's integral to be able to take a project forwards efficiently.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good analog, and I think probably in the back of most people's minds. And talking their difficulty in terms of the work done so far, in terms of understanding how you kind of separate the dysprosium and terbium in the rare earths mix, because that's the money shot there. Can you tell us a little bit about the ongoing work and the kind of I guess the sampling that you're doing across the paleo channel?
Sure. So initially across the greater paleo channel system, we'll do diagnostic leaches just to confirm the ionic recovery rate, those low acid consumption figures. But then we're about to go, or ANSTO this week, preparing a 55 kilogram in size ISR bench scale test that will run at a higher acidity, pH 4 or 4.5. And through that, we'll produce a significant amount of pregnant liquor, probably around 100 litres. And from that, we're going to do a number of tests. So oxidating of those lights, we'll assess what the molarity has on the impact of those recoveries. So what molarity is, it's the intensity, strength of the acidity. And if we can reduce that molarity from 0.5 and take it lower, one, it improves economics even further, but two, it may change the response of how different rare earths are liberated. So if we start with a lower molarity, we may be able to remove some of the lights up front and take them through the system, precipitate them out, and then increase the molarity and then recover the heavies. And if we can do that, we're not trying to come up with a downstream or a flow sheet challenge. We're separating lights from heavies in our mining process. And that is a huge opportunity for us.
Okay, interesting. Because obviously, looking at the heavies, and I think, like I say, for me, that's an interesting bit about your project. We've got to talk about the kind of ex-China element here. I think that's what people have got excited about. A few weeks ago now, MP Materials investment from the US DOD and Apple, etc. Chinese ionic clay represents 90% of the heavy rare earths market at the moment. How do you guys stack up in terms of yield or impurities or any other way you want to measure it?
Well, we're unfortunately 30 years behind them in experience, but we're trying to learn quickly, Matt. I think what we see is our first pass, our impurities were pretty low. We had a exceptionally high grade. Our MREC was 63% total rare earths in carbonate. And that's a great starting point. It gives us great flexibility and optionality to really optimize this. But I think with China, a lot of those results have been kept secret, and kept secret for a reason. If we can engineer the process through our mining strategy and our mine plan, I think that's probably something that they've deployed. And what we need to do to emerging supply chains in Europe and America is be able to provide the same quality product that China has been providing those parties and those OEMs. So if we can be competitive in quality and the right ratios of those heavies and neodymium and praseodymium, we're giving our project the best opportunity to be competitive and to be able to partner with the right off-takers.
Okay, so it might be worth kind of, I don't want to get lost in too much detail. I don't lose some folks, because I think the big news of the day is obviously the copper optionality here. As a critical minerals company now, you're well financed in the sense that, you know, the offloading the gold Celtic Barton is put some, well, on that stage, but put some money in the coffers.
Yep.
But your focus, how are you going to allocate the money sort of between Boland, Yanini, and Narrabee, because what you've got is two minerals which are much in demand. Certainly, if I look at the North American market, they're going nuts for that stuff. But copper people understand, rare earths they don't quite understand. And you know there might be different market reactions in Australia. I mean, so when you're going out with these stories, where do you think you're going to get listened to more because of the copper coming on board, or how do you read the situation out there?
Yep, interesting. So when we speak to institutions, they're very interested in our rare earth story, but they're probably a little bit hesitant and want to see us go further down the development pathway before committing. Now, when you sell a scalable, significant copper story with credible results and a pathway to a valuable resource, there aren't many of them in Australia at the moment. There's huge demand for them. And I think balancing off our rare earth story and what that opportunity is with a scalable copper project is going to give us the right balance to take our company to the next level of investor.
So how are you framing this? Are you a critical minerals company, which does sound a bit vague, but it's certainly a hot topic, or are you going to be a rare earths company and spin out the copper, or can they coexist?
I think for the time being they can coexist, and what we are going to focus on that is dysprosium, terbium, and copper. All three of those metals are essential. We have the right technical team that we can be efficient and effective in discovery at Blue Rose in copper and in development in the rare earths. So that's really our focus.
Okay. And do you think that the market's going to ready for that story in terms of looking to kind of scale up both of those things? Because obviously I think there's a kind of confluence of interest on both, you know, especially the heavy side of the rare earths story and copper. Is the market kind of self-leveling? Because sorry, a little anecdote. I'm sort of trying to work out how many people are going to be going to IMARC in October, but the feedback I'm getting, a lot of companies are sort of stranded at the moment in the sense that the green revolution hasn't quite worked out its plan for everyone. Is the money starting to focus on the management teams who can, and maybe moving away from the management teams who've just or demonstrated that they can't?
Great question. And look, the market's been tough for a number of years, particularly in the UK, and we're actually seeing some great market traction at present, which is great. I think what we have been able to show, Matt, is we've been very diligent and considerate in our process of raising capital. We've got a major shareholder base that are very supportive, very little dilution, and every placing that we've done on a very tight basis. So tight register, support of major shareholders. We've positioned another institution, Australian-based, earlier in the year, and on our current share price, they've done very nicely. So we'd like to think that they're going to be there to support our story in the future.
Nice. Okay. Well, look, Rupert, congratulations on the deal. I think it's a smart deal, a good move. And maybe let's come back and, if you don't mind, do a little session on helping people understand why heavy rare earths, dysprosium, terbium are going to be so important and much in demand going forward. So we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Matt. That'd be great.